The primroses were over. With this opening reference to the primrose path, or the path of ease, thank you, Merriam-Webster, the author, Richard Adams, is signaling to us that the days of ease are in the past, and difficulties lie ahead. In a world almost entirely devoid of escapism, where every tale is a thinly veiled allegory for this political view or that, or is written for modern audiences, with a steaming outhouse full of the message of the day, I find myself looking to the past for my entertainment. If you're looking for an adventure without a hint of politics or preaching, a story where a group of vagabonds forced to flee their doomed home to embark into a dangerous world where every step could be their last, then I believe you will love this story. What starts out as a group of desperate travelers held together by the thin string of survival becomes a family that trusts each other. A group where each member uses his strength to make up for the weakness of the others. And even the smallest, seemingly weakest member of the group becomes critical. And it's all about rabbits. You will have a hard time finding a better read than Watership Down by Richard Adams. The main character, Hazel, a young buck, is out grazing with his runt brother Fiver. Fiver has a vision where he sees the fields covered in blood. Now, Fiver has this sixth sense where he can see danger before it comes. Knowing this, Hazel leads a small group of rabbits from the ill-fated warren to what he hopes will prove a safe place to live. This launches the story of a band of rabbits who set on a quest to discover a new home of safety. I won't go any further at this time to avoid spoilers, but I will repeat what I said earlier. If you want to read a novel that won't preach at you but is pure escapism and an outstanding adventure story, you will love this read. The whole book will have you on the edge of your seat, but that last third will have you grip so hard you'll need a crowbar to pry your rump free. Do yourself a favor and read it. And if you've already read it, read it again. If you prefer audiobooks, I recommend Peter Capaldi. He does a great job. Okay, so I'm going to drift into spoiler territory here, so if you haven't read it yet, get out. The primrose were over, as I said earlier, is an indication that the life of ease is behind, and the hardships lie ahead for our characters. I am not going to do a point-by-point plot summary, but I want to talk about the parts that make the book great, starting with the characters. While Hazel's the main character, I think Bigwig grows the most throughout the story. He starts out as a rabbit in the Owsla, but after getting chewed out by his chief, he leaves with Hazel, thinking that he is a shoo-in for the chief of the new group. However, after he is injured, he learns to lean on the group. Finally, when Hazel goes to confront the Black Rabbit of Inley, the rabbit's Grim Reaper equivalent, Bigwig proves his value by showing that he would follow Hazel anywhere. Bigwig ends up having my favorite exchange in the book, but I will get to that soon. Hazel also grows as a leader. He starts out just trying to protect those around him and making sure that the weaker ones don't get bullied. After he becomes the leader of the group, he becomes a little too sure of himself, and that cost him. I love how by the end of his arc, everybody trusts him, but he trusts Fiver, and he won't make a move without Fiver's blessing. His dedication to protecting those around him earns the respect of the group, and his mercy and willingness to make friends with anyone, be it a mouse or a seagull, shows his cleverness and wisdom. The way that Hazel seeks advice from those around him shows that he more than deserves to be chief. Fiver grows the least, but he really doesn't need to. He trusts Hazel and eventually earns the respect of the entire group. You could say the group grows as it learns to trust Fiver's judgment. Also, Blackberry and Dandelion are great characters of their own, with Blackberry being the smartest and advisor to Hazel, and also a decent fighter, while Dandelion is the fastest, and Dandelion is a storyteller, and his stories are used to introduce El Ra Re Ra, a mythology for the rabbits. I love how Adams uses the stories of El Ra Re Ra to give you a chance to breathe between action. Also, El Ra Re Ra serves as a folk hero to the rabbits. He's an example of what a good rabbit should be, being fast on his feet and a trickster. General Woundwort, the antagonist of the story, is not even introduced until the last 150 pages of the book. This isn't a point against the book, it shows what dangers rabbits face. Woundwort is a great antagonist. He is in some ways a contrast to Hazel. He's big, he's ruthless, and will do things his way. Ephrafra, Woundwort's warren, is run with cold-blooded efficiency. Woundwort rules by fear and force. Hazel leads with reason and courage. If they are running, they haven't gone far, said Woundwort, but I don't think they are running. I think they are still in their warren. At that moment, a rabbit came out of the grass and sat up in the middle of the track. He paused for a few moments and then moved towards them. He was limping and had a strained, resolute look. You're General Woundwort, aren't you? Said the rabbit. I've come to talk to you. Did Pheles send you? Asked Woundwort. I'm a friend of Pheles, replied the rabbit. I've come to ask why you're here, and what is it you want? Were you on the riverbank in the rain? Said Woundwort. Yes, I was. What was left unfinished there will be finished now, said Woundwort. We are going to destroy you. You won't find it easy, replied the other. You'll take fewer rabbits home than you brought. We should both do better to come to terms. Very well, said Woundwort. These are the terms. You will give back all the does who ran from Ephrafra, and you will hand over the deserters, Pheles and Blackaver, to my Owsla. No, we can't agree to that. I've come to suggest something altogether different, and better for us both. A rabbit has 2 ears. A rabbit has 2 eyes, 2 nostrils. Our 2 warrens ought to be like that. They ought to be together, not fighting. We ought to make other warrens between us. Start one between here and Ephrafra, with rabbits from both sides. You wouldn't lose by that. You'd gain. We both would. A lot of your rabbits are unhappy now, and it's all you can do to control them. But with this plan, you'd soon see a difference. Rabbits have enough enemies as it is. They ought not to make more amongst themselves. A mating between 3 independent warrens. What do you say? At that moment, the sun set on Watership Down. There was offered to General Woundwort the opportunity to show whether he was really the leader of vision and genius which he believed himself to be, or whether he was no more than a tyrant with the courage and cunning of a pirate. For one beat of his pulse, the lame rabbit's idea shone clearly before him. He grasped it and realized what it meant. The next, he had pushed it away from him. The sun dipped behind the cloud bank, and now he could see clearly the track among the ridge leading to the beach hanger, and the bloodshed for which he had prepared with so much energy and care. In conclusion, Watership Down starts out as an adventure story, but quickly becomes a story about friendship and devotion, with one of the greatest endings I have ever read. I love this book, and it deserves to be read. The story will change the way you look at rabbits. Once more he climbed on the pile of earth. Then he stopped. Vervain and Thistle, raising their heads to peer past him from behind, saw why. Pheles had made his way up the run, and was now crouching immediately below. Blood had matted the great thatch of fur on his head, and one ear, half severed, hung down beside his face. His breathing was slow and heavy. "You'll find it much harder to push me back from here, General," he said. With a sort of weary, dull surprise, Woundwort realized that he was afraid. He did not want to attack Phelan again, and he knew, with flinching certainty, that he was not up to it. And who was, he thought, who could do it? No, they'd have to get by in some other way, and everyone would know why. Phelan, he said, we've unblocked the run up here. I can bring in enough rabbits to pull this wall in 4 places. Why don't you come out? Phelan's reply, when it came, was low and gasping, but perfectly clear. My chief rabbit has told me to defend this run, and until he says otherwise, I shall stay here. His chief rabbit? Said Verbane, starring. It had not occurred to Woundwort or any of his officers that Phelan was not the chief rabbit of his warren. Yet what he said carried immediate conviction. He was speaking the truth, and if he was not the chief rabbit, then somewhere close by there must be another, stronger rabbit who was. A stronger rabbit than Phelan? Where was he? What was he doing at this moment? Woundwort became aware that Thistle was no longer behind him.